Welcome in, everybody, to the Important Nonsense Podcast. Steve Bonham, Neil Smith, Mike Manning, 32 teams in 32 days. They say that Lambeau Field, it's like the holy ground of football, right? Today we're talking about the Packers, and this feels like holy ground. This feels like church because I know I'm like morally obligated to have to be here, but I really don't want to. That's really how this episode feels for me every year. But we're talking Packers today, guys. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready. I know it's your favorite show every year. I know that you get out of bed to fight with these people on Twitter about this shit.
It's what gets me going in the morning. I've come around, right? They're not completely. It's at least I don't have to hear that Aaron Rodgers Aaron Jones is the RB1 anymore. Like that ship has at least sailed a little bit.
Once that argument stopped, I think a lot of the fighting stopped, to be honest. So
100%. That's how this always works. Like, stop calling Tyler Boyd a top 20 wide receiver. He's not. And then once that stopped, I can let it go. Just because I was right. We all know I was right. I don't need the acknowledgement. I already know. I knew it to begin with. Okay.
You want to go touch your little sign,
but I doubt
it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mike, anything on the Packers?
I mean, I at least don't have the major stench of disdain that is emanating from both of your screens.
All right, good show. Good show. Wrap it up. All right,
we've always needed a neutral person on this show, so this will help us out. So as always, 12-team PPR for everything. If you don't use that scoring, then adjust accordingly. Also, we are recording this on July 27th, so if anything seems outdated, then that would be why. The only thing that could possibly be outdated on this team is if they got a real wide receiver, but we will see if that happens. The August 26th wrap-up show is when we would talk about that, though, so we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But until then, we have what we have, and what we have is still Aaron Rodgers kicking and screaming at the top of the Packers lineup. He was supposed to be on the Broncos show a couple days ago, and that didn't work out last year. So now he's still here in Green Bay. And Jordan Love is still back there, angry as all hell. He's this generation's Jimmy Garoppolo, just sitting behind the franchise MVP QB, waiting for his opportunity to go piddle on somebody else's team. So we'll see. See what happens there. But I mean, do we have anything on Rodgers? He's basically a back end starting wide receiver. He's a top end.
He's a back end starting quarterback.
Wide receiver. Yeah.
Okay.
Starting quarterback. Wow. That's the controversy.
Okay.
Back end starting quarterback. Yes, thank you.
He's going to be really hard when he's running in a 6'5" 40. He's going to be putting down at his age.
Right. He's a top end super flex. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah, top end super flex.
Okay.
But otherwise, there's nothing really to talk about here, right?
Aaron Rodgers is good at football.
Is Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah. He's Aaron Rodgers. He's good at football. He's proven time and time and time again. The rumors of his death have been greatly exaggerated, and he gets it done with a suboptimal cast. He complains the entire time, but he does it, and that's why he's still here. And I've got him at 10. Steve, you've got him at 11. Mike, you've got him at 13. Mike, defend yourself in front of Green Bay Twitter. Why do you hate Aaron Rodgers?
The ADP has him at 12,
so I'm not exactly majorly. I think my two guys ahead of him are Joe Burrow and Trey Lance. So
Trey Lance is the interesting one there. Don't bury that and derail the whole show.
I mean, I just think that the upside of Trey Lance is is just huge at that point. If you're waiting at that far to get your quarterback, Rodgers is going to have a good season. He's going to throw the ball well. He's going to put up numbers. I just think that there's also a chance that this team becomes even more run heavy than it was in the past couple years, which was they were 11th in run rate the past 3 seasons with Nathaniel Hackett at OC. Whether it was him or LaFleur calling the plays, the past 3 seasons, they've been 11th in the NFL in rushing. Like, rate. So could this go even farther because of, as we see on the screen, that's what their wide receiver room looks like. That's what their running back room looks like. It's possible. I mean, Aaron's getting paid either way. It's not like much of his. It's not like much of his $150 million or whatever contract is incentive based. No, pretty sure it's just whether he is on the field in general.
And I mean, he's won back-to-back MVPs, so
yeah,
it's not like we're talking about Peyton Manning at the end of his career when it was all falling apart. Like, I think he's still got a couple good years left in him. So this is open and shut. Running back. This is going to be an open and shut show. I mean, there's not a ton to discuss here. Jack has A.J. Dillon listed as the starting running back. I don't know if that's super controversial, but the third down running back, Aaron Jones, they're going to basically split the job. This has been a two-headed monster, whether you've noticed it or not. It's basically been that way from a snap perspective. They are one of the better running back duos in the NFL. Currently, I'd argue they're one of the better running back duos we've seen in the last 5 years. Jones should see an increased workload in the receiving game with Davante Adams going over to Vegas. We talked about it in the past. We've talked about it several times on this show, the fact that anytime Davante Adams has missed time, all of a sudden, Aaron Jones becomes basically the wide receiver one in this offense. Like, he gets targeted more than anybody else. He gets extremely involved in the passing game, and that's buoyed him to the fantasy seasons and productions that he's had in the past. He's getting up there in age, but if they're going to use him more as just a pass catcher or rotating into the slot, Aaron Jones in a PPR format should, in my estimation, have a top 10 season under his belt this year. And then you've got A.J. Dillon, the man with the quads, who's just running through everybody, Derrick Henry light, and just crushing people week in and week out. We're going to see even more of him this year, but he's going to get a majority of the goal line work. He's going to get a majority of the between the 20s stuff. So he should be able to put up the yardage. He can catch the ball as well. So it's not like he's completely useless in the passing game. He will have some targets and some catches, but it's mainly going to be rushing yards and rushing touchdowns that are going to carry him. But we all believe both of these guys are going to be startable, usable running backs on a week in, week out basis.
100%. You mentioned if folks hadn't noticed, and I'm like, how could you not notice A.J. Dillon's thighs? His thighs are the size of my chest. It's no wonder he's so hard to tackle. It's unbelievable what he's able to do, especially when he gets down near the goal line. So this is going to be the offense, folks. It's going to be ugly as sin, but this is what we're doing. It's going to be a lot of running back touches to go around here. But to put a fine point on it, Steve, you've got Aaron Jones at 9. I've got him at 8. Mike, you've got him at 12. So we've all got him as an RB1 near the back end. A.J. Dillon, pretty much the same story. Steve, you got him at 23. I've got him at 23. Mike, you got him at 27. So we're talking about he's a back end RB2 for you. That's really, it's not that controversial when you break down their usage rates, how much the Packers intend to utilize the running back and how much they're going to run the football. You got to figure out how you're going to redistribute the giant hole left by Davante Adams going to Vegas. And I got to tell you, I've seen people's different models and attempts to do this. And the ones that I like and think are more accurate are the ones where the lion's share of that production gets chopped up between A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. Because I just don't believe any universe or any of these Sammy Watkins is going to – no, stop it. Stop it. Just stop it. Stop that right now. Randall Cobb's 100. Christian Watson hasn't played a down of football in the NFL yet. This is where your point centers are. It's the running backs. And just to put an even finer point on it, for me, the one I'm more interested in really is Dillon. And I know that's weird because he's the one who's not going to catch as many passes, but that's the one that I think, because of the relative price tags here, that's the one that I'm a little bit more interested in, just based on what you have to invest to acquire each player. So that's right. That's kind of how I read the whole situation. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is rinse and repeat here for all three of us. It's just, Aaron Jones is going to get his targets. Whenever Davante Adams was out, he saw 7 targets a game. That's great for a running back. And when A.J. Dillon took over towards the middle to around week 10 to really become the bruiser in that offense, where he was seeing a game here and a game there with 20 plus rushes, and he was the focal point of the red zone. I know that Aaron Rodgers likes to throw the ball a lot when it gets down to the red zone, but when the running back touched the ball, it was A.J. Dillon just hammering into defenders at the goal line. So there is no reason to be concerned as to what both of these running backs are going to do. They're going to get their work. This is the epitome of that lightning thunder type running back system.
Yeah.
Like, this is it.
Yep, 100%. And right now, A.J. Dillon, like you said, going top of the 6th round, like last pick of the 5th round, top of the 6th round.
Love it.
So,
Love everything about it.
yeah, he's basically a top 24 guy that we've got going at the end.
Don't listen to this, America. Don't move that ADP. Don't ignore everything we said. Leave that right where it is. I need those values for my own drafts. Sorry. Selfish,
you're looking at, in that range, you're looking at the top back, like RB2s in general, like not in general, but on their teams, supposed backup running backs is Kareem Hunt and A.J. Dillon. So you get to pick your poison there of two teams that are going to love to run the ball and give the ball to their running backs. And
that's an easy choice.
Well, yeah.
For me, it is.
That's what's happening. That's where you're looking at.
Yeah.
Once you get rid of all the RB1s or the back end of like Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Miles Sanders type guys that, like, you're obviously taking these guys or A.J. Dillon over them time and time again. Easy.
Wide receiver. They spent their 2nd round pick on Christian Watson. Allen Lazard is currently the wide receiver 1 on this team. The Lazard King still hanging around. And Randall Cobb, the ageless wonder in the slot, is fighting with Amari Rodgers to try and have that role. Of course, they signed Sammy Watkins for no reason in the off season. So the 2 weeks that he plays, if he makes it that far,
already on the NFI list,
will
already there, already did it.
Also, Romeo Dobbs, a guy that people are taking in dynasty leagues, flyer to know for later, but he has no role, at least in my mind, this season. So again, just a name to note, but don't really care about it. The main ones are Christian Watson and Allen Lazard. Those are the ones that we will debate at the top here. Lazard, again, technically he's the wide receiver 1. To me, he's the wide receiver 1 at this point. I think it's more likely that they end up signing somebody like an Odell Beckham once he's healthy as we get further into this season. I feel like they have to add some kind of veteran presence to that passing game at some point, because Watkins is not the answer. And to me, Watson didn't grade out well enough for me to buy into it. He was okay, but he played in North Dakota State. So it's no knock on them, but it's just not the same level of competition that you would have at other collegiate levels or what he's going to face.
Hey, you know who else played at North Dakota State? Josh Allen. Nope, that was Wyoming.
No, he played Wyoming.
It was Wyoming.
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance did. That's the one. That's who I'm thinking of. I knew there was a quarterback that played there.
Yes, and it's a rushing quarterback too.
It's a rushing quarterback too. It's one of those.
Yes. Where was it? Oh yeah. But he's yet to eclipse 45 receptions or 700 receiving yards in a season. Again, it's mainly been the Devontae Adams show. 6 of his 8 receiving touchdowns have come in the red zone. He's 27, getting his first real shot to be the wide receiver 1. No one has ever claimed Allen Lazard as a top 10 talent at wide receiver, or top 20, maybe even top 30. But Allen Lazard has been decent enough to earn the role that he has had over the last couple of seasons with the Packers. And they now feel comfortable signing him and keeping him on as potentially, like we're saying, the one here. So for me, I've got him at 36 just because that's the very end of wide receiver 3. And he's Aaron Rodgers wide receiver 1. So to me, he's got the upside to be a top 24 guy that I can get for a discount. You guys both have him a little bit lower, more skeptical, understandable. How do you feel about Allen Lazard this season?
I've got him right in line with the ECR at 45. I'd be willing to splash out a little bit more than that, but the only thing that really holds me back on wanting to rate him higher is he's never been the picture of health. And as we talk about, injury prone is a myth. But Allen Lazard does have the growing medical dossier, and he is not exactly a lock to get through the entire season. When he's out there, I have no concerns. Rodgers clearly trusts him. I still remember our sarcastic comments from last year and the year before about, hey, remember Allen Lazard? He had a good game once. Well, he's got a real opportunity now, so we can put our derisive comments in our pocket. So it's one of those situations where I'm okay with it, considering ECR's got him at 45. You guys, I'd be fine if you wanted to take him in that 38, 36 range because you believe in the upside and you're not as concerned about the injuries or anything like that. Fine with me. I make no bones about who is he competing with. Is the very simple, cynical argument, but it does hold a certain amount of water here, considering you're talking about he's competing with a rookie, a guy who's on the wrong side of 30, who at least has Rodgers' trust, and another guy who I think might literally be cut. Because if you look at Sammy Watkins' contract, there's like no guaranteed money on that. They could cut him for about $250,000 if he ends up just being an injury case like he's been for a long time. They could just get him right out the door. And all of this could mean very little if they do sign somebody. But with the information we have today, I'm fine with Lazard in that range, considering the idea that I agree with you. If all the cards and all the chips go the right way, he could get as high as like wide receiver 24. So the upside is definitely there for you. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we had heard reports after Julio Jones has signed with Tampa Bay that Green Bay and Indy reportedly sent him a contract offer, and he chose Tampa Bay. So that if they are saying somewhere that they aren't looking at veteran, no, they're looking at veteran wide receiver.
They are.
They're crazy if they weren't. As we've said with Lazard, Cobb has missed plenty of time in the past couple years because he's old. It's going to happen. And Watkins already on the injury list. So just for the simple fact of you don't want your wide receiver room to look like second-round rookie, fourth-round rookie, and third-round rookie from last year. So like that's not what you want your wide receiver room to look like in the NFL.
Yeah,
I think that if, say, Green Bay picked one of the other early second-round wide receivers like a Pickens or Sky Moore, Lazard love would be a lot less even, and he's not even being like, it's not, there's nobody gushing over Allen Lazard, but I think
it's just me. That's it.
I'm 2 spots behind you. I mean,
no, I'm all alone.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that has him rated as a wide receiver 3.
Because I do not like Christian Watson as a player. Yeah. I didn't like him that much coming out. I think that most of his shortcomings coming out of college are things that would easily piss off Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Route running. The drops.
Yeah. Route running struggles. Like all these things are things that like would really just be like, all right, I'm done with this guy. Get him off the field.
Yeah, he was my wide receiver 14 in the class, like of the rookies, and that again, being drafted in the second round and going to Green Bay obviously helps him, but yeah, just the talent and the numbers alone aren't enough for me. And right now, ADP, Allen Lazard, wide receiver 46 in the 10th round. To me, that's a song. I'll take that bargain every time you want to give it to me. Whereas Christian Watson, people are looking for the upside, 57 for him, and that's going in the 11th round. So one round later than you can get Allen Lazard. And to me, that's way too much. And one of my favorite stats to pull, so this is the highest they have drafted a wide receiver since they drafted Devontae Adams in 2014, which says more about Green Bay than anything else. But even then, it's Devontae Adams. Like, we all know how good Devontae Adams is. And even as a second-round prospect coming in that season, he had 66 targets, 38 catches for 446 in his rookie year. Like, Rodgers takes time to build a rapport with these guys. Ask everybody that was hyping Amari Rodgers last season. He takes time.
You can't. They've all retired from the game. Exactly. They don't play. Those people don't play fantasy football anymore. They're all doing something else.
To connect with these guys. And even then, Amari Rodgers is another one who I said he's competing with Randall Cobb in the slot. Right now, Amari Rodgers is going at wide receiver 92. He's completely off the page. He's not even being drafted. I didn't even list him in the deepest of leagues.
I didn't even list him.
Yeah, so like if I was going to draft anybody that was a young wide receiver on this roster, I'm more inclined to get Amari Rodgers off waivers than I am to spend a draft pick on Christian Watson. I think coming into his second year with the opportunity to have that slot role that we've seen others thrive in, that he can easily steal from Randall Cobb, assuming he doesn't retire before the season starts. Like that is a role that can produce a fantasy relevant wide receiver and be a weekly flex. So I think he has more upside than taking a Christian Watson in the 11th round.
To put a fine point on that, Steve, you've got Watson at wide receiver 61. I've got him at 59. Mike has got him at 77. The ECR's got him at 69. So nobody with an expert consensus.
And he's going at 57. So he's going above everybody.
And I'll tell you right now, the minute that they sign a veteran, which I believe they're going to do, I'm going to crater Christian Watson like 20 spots, and in my rankings. And the other one other thing I will say is really not helping him that he's on the PUP list right now.
Yep.
Because to your point about Rodgers takes time and Rodgers doesn't trust guys, you're not getting the critical reps now with Watson that he needs to be getting as a rookie. He needed to go through camp. He needed to go through training camp also after that. He didn't get to do a lot of those things because he's still beat up. And we've also, to Mike, that's why I brought up the drops. How many guys have we seen Aaron Rodgers just kick dirt on their graves on this Green Bay roster because they have like 2 or 3 drops? Mm-hmm. And he's just done. He's just immediately done, not throwing to you anymore. That's why Allen Lazard is still around. Because he's not the best athlete, but when he gets the ball in his general vicinity, he catches it. That's why Marquez Valdez-Scantling is gone. That's the reason. So there's very little that I'm super excited about here. It's Lazard, and it's whatever they might want to look at as a veteran, but we don't know that information yet. Everything else is waiver wire fodder. The whole rest of the room. Lazard is draftable. Nothing else is draftable. We'll revisit this conversation when they sign a veteran. That's where I'm at with the whole wide receiver room. It's pretty gross.
Yeah, there hasn't been a situation, I don't think, where a quarterback of this caliber has entered a season with a receiving core looking like this.
That's a good question, actually.
I mean, I haven't been able to, as I've been thinking, during this podcast, come up at the top of my head, anything even similar to
good question.
A wide receiver that's never hit 70 catches or whatever, or hasn't hit 700 yards.
Yeah.
A rookie that was raw coming into the NFL, and then several 30-ish old veterans that have not had much actual success.
It might be Tom Brady on one of those Patriots teams when they had terrible wide receivers several years ago.
Yeah, but even then they had Julian Edelman.
I know that's what hurts. They at least had Edelman.
Yeah, they had Edelman or they had Gronk before that.
Right. Yeah. So it's like they always had something.
And then and I get what you're saying with this caliber, because you could say like Matt Ryan.
Oh sure, but yeah,
that's what he dealt with.
This is a back-to-back MVP.
Atlanta, but this is. It's a good one. I don't know.
On a team that's trying to go to the Super Bowl.
You'd have to go. You'd have to go pretty far back. Yeah. A team that's trying to be competitive.
I think you'd have to go far enough back that you'd be back in that time frame 15 years ago before but that was a different NFL, as we know. The league was a lot less pass happy going back to the turn of the century. That's a good one. We'd have to go into Pro Football reference and like dig through it. I think that's the only way. That's a good question.
I mean, if you're looking at like the two mentalities between Tom Brady's now Buccaneers, they signed their what would be their wide receiver four being a former, like an arguable Hall of Fame caliber
7-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah, and none of these guys, they didn't even go for name value on their roster for Green Bay.
Yeah,
there's nothing. Sammy Watkins is the attempted
name.
Yeah, we know the
not
name.
for the right reasons, not for positive reasons.
And I don't want to get too far into it because we'll get into it in a couple weeks with Julio. But really, to me, that said more about him than it did about the Packers or the situation where he basically could have been easily the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay, and he chose to be the wide receiver 4 instead because he'd rather have that role and have a shot at a ring.
Right.
Then same thing with
then have the volume.
He could have been the 1B effectively in with the Colts.
The 1 or the 2,
or the 1 or the 2 with the Colts, and that's a better team
with Matt Ryan, who he's played with and has the connection with.
Right. He could have done that.
Yeah.
But I think I think I agree with you. It's the way I looked at that contract, it's a tacit admission by Julio that I don't have that many years left. I got maybe 1 or 2, and then I'm done.
Again, I'm as much as we all know I'm far from a Green Bay Packer fan. I don't want to put it in the universe to help them out in any way, shape, or form. Okay, I already mentioned Odell, but I mean, if you're telling me that right now for peanuts you can sign Will Fuller to be your wide receiver 1 on this offense with Aaron Rodgers, he's a top 20 wideout, is he not?
He'd have to be, despite the fact that I don't care for him.
And learns the playbook. He's a top 20 wide receiver.
Well, if he could learn the playbook,
would scare me a bit below that, but
with 3 qualifiers, he'd have to learn the playbook, prove that he was healthy, and not get busted for PEDs again. But if he could do those 3 things, then
he can't do any of those things.
I know that's why he's not signed. But where I was going was T.Y. Hilton on 1 leg immediately slots as like the second guy because that's how low the bar goes.
Yeah.
And he didn't even look good last year.
I know he didn't look good. He's on 1 leg. His leg is just wrecked. Like he thinks he can still play. I don't know.
Well, now we're just playing fantasy booker.
I know we really are. Let's we should go to tight end. Let's just go to tight end.
All right, tight end Robert Tonyan. He's getting a shot to shine here because really, outside of Lazard and Aaron Jones, who else, right? So you mentioned a couple episodes ago, Mike, the connection with, I think it was Dalton Schultz, right? Dawson Knox. There you go. With basically being Robert Tonyan 2.0. Why can't he do it again?
I mean, he could. Like he has obviously shown the connection with Rodgers because he had that great breakout season.
Yeah.
But so I mean,
I'm pretty sure Aaron Rodgers knows he exists.
Yeah.
But it's just he's never going to be a volume guy. He's never going to dominate targets over the middle of the field, but he's in that area of tight end where, hey, if you catch a touchdown, you did it. You won the week.
That's the exact definition there. Yeah.
Yep. That's it. That's all there is. That's all the analysis you need for Robert Tonyan.
He's finally far enough down the page to where it's actually worth possibly taking a flyer on it. We've all got him at 18, by the way. Mm-hmm. Every single one of us on this show has him at tight end 18. It's crazy because usually there's some variability.
Well, and his ADP is 17. So
right. That's what I'm saying. He's finally far enough down the page that in the 14th round, think about it.
Yeah.
That's it.
This whole show, open and shut. We spent more of this show trying to get them a better wide receiver than they've probably spent all offseason.
I was having more fun doing that too, breaking down their actual players. That was, I thought, a much more fun exercise is trying to play fantasy GM for a minute.
I mean, that's basically it. Defense and kicker. So they still have the ghost of Mason Crosby for now. There was the report today that he had a knee procedure this offseason. So we'll see if that has, any effect on it. But again, to me, he's not startable anyway. So he's not even in the range of being a usable kicker. The Packers defense, people love to flirt with putting them in the top end, but they consistently have such a difficult schedule that, again, it's one of those things like we talked about with the Broncos where, right now they're going at defense number 12. And to me, unless you're willing to stream defense every single week, there's just too many times I have to bench the Packers for me to want to waste a draft pick on it. So that's it.
I've got them at 14. I would be more than happy if I could actually just use them as a streamer. The problem is that in a lot of the mocks we end up doing, somebody decides to bite that apple and wants them in the top 10. And it's like,
yeah, somebody's a shareholder, so they got to grab their piece of the pie.
Yeah, no kidding.
There we go. We did it. And not a single cheese reference.
And no swearing this time. We managed to get through it without having to bleep anybody, which is normally not how this show goes.
Fantastic.
Normally there's at least 1 or 2 bleeps.
All right. Well,
tomorrow factor here.
Probably. Actually, you're probably the rudder on this one.
That's what it is. So now these shows have been kind of up and down all over. I don't even know how to gauge it. I would say tomorrow is going to be a faster show, but you never know because there's so much to debate with horrendous teams that it could take a while. We could be trapped.
We could play Fantasy GM again. If we got to fill time, we could do that.
But we will fall into the void that is the Houston Texans tomorrow. I'm sure you're looking forward to it as much as we are. If you want to skip past that one, we would totally understand it. But again, patreon.com/importantnonsense. Get these a couple days early. You may have already seen the Houston Texans one, and you can just skip past this one when you get there. Just go straight to the Colts. That's what we would like to do, but we can't. Until tomorrow, everybody. Keep up the nonsense.
I'm Tim Kitzrow from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!